So let's talk about media literacy, huh? So thank you for the invitation. I would love to talk to you about Momo and the Tide Pod Challenge and everything, because I really enjoyed the talks this morning. It's slow, it's not moving. I really enjoyed the talks this morning about the challenges and of practical media use. Thank you so much. But my talk is going to be about more of a meta level on what we were talking about this morning and right now. How do we reach parents, teachers, educators? And I don't know how you feel, but for the last couple of years working in this area, I hear myself repeating a set of sentences over and over again. Feels like bullshit bingo sometimes. The first phrase, the first sentence is, the digital transformation is an opportunity as well as a challenge. The second one, the digital transformation is an issue of the present, not the future. And the third one I hear myself saying over and over again is we cannot think of education in the 21st century without considering media literacy. And I assume that we as experts of education and media literacy have agreed on those statements a couple of years ago, but the everyday practice of families and youth education on a local or a regional level still seems to differ from that perspective. And especially in the experience of parents and professionals, teachers, as most of you are, counselors, administrators, there is still one simple word following when stating that digital media literacy is important. Digital literacy is important, but. This simple word, but, refers to a limitation, to a specific issue or a set of specific issues which inhibits parents, professionals, children and youth from participating, from partaking actively in the digital transformation. It's like, the list is long: lack of financial resources, limited time, the feeling that things are too complicated and that technology develops too fast to understand how it really is working in its depth. The fear of making mistakes, fear of cyberbullying, data abuse, personal financial risks, a lack of knowledge, a lack of institutional relations, a lack of political interest in digital matters and family issues, and so on and so on. The list of arguments against the preoccupation with media literacy on a local level are quite infinite. Especially for parents, the situation seems to be confusing and dissatisfactory. Should they turn to their kids' school for questions about media use at a young age? Can they trust the information they get on the internet concerning privacy regulations on WhatsApp, for example? How should they deal with cyberbullying? Is it appropriate to consult police authorities, for example? Is it okay if my kids know more about the internet than I do as an adult? Is Fortnite a danger to a safe and healthy mental and emotional development of my children? What I'm trying to describe here is the encounter of infrastructural challenges and concerns with regards to content. It's legal matters that seem to clash with personal fears and needs that cannot be solved on a national level nor on a European level, I'm so sorry. But it's about issues that need to be attended as highly individual conditions and circumstances which require highly individual solutions. Due to the fact that only Germany has over 11,000 municipalities in 16 states, those individual conditions request further attendance without generalizing them. And as a member of the Digital Opportunities Foundation, I asked myself, or my team, we asked ourselves, how can we encourage local players to join forces and to start to develop projects on media literacy and digital education together that live up to the specific situations on a local level? And how can we help parents and families to develop digital skills without overcharging them by inviting them to another congress or another conference? Moreover, how can we use our own networking skills? I mean, that's what we're doing here today all the time. We're networking. How can we use those networking skills to bring together different stakeholders on a local level, like libraries, welfare organizations, schools, local administration, and educators, and help them with developing their own projects? You see, it's more about a meta level, an organizational level. And I would like to give you some insights into one of our projects called Local Network Groups for Media Literacy, a project we developed not only to foster media literacy, but also to find out more about the infrastructure, values, and basic conditions of establishing networks in complex municipal environments. From December 2012 to January 2013, local and regional institutions that counsel families in difficult life situations were invited to partner with at least 3 other institutions or projects to apply as a funded network for media literacy. The Digital Opportunities Foundation chose 5 out of 80 applications for a 1-year fund of up to 30,000 euros for 1 year. Provided by the Federal Ministry of Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth. A team of the foundation, while establishing working routines and common goals to implement media literacy within their infrastructure, accompanied these 5 networks. And about a year later, in 2014, the ministry founded the nationwide initiative Growing Up with Media and integrated those 5 networks into the national initiative, but without further funding. Since 2014, about 10 more networks joined our program to benefit from the experience made by the first 5 networks, which we published as a guide of recommended actions 5 years ago. So why networks? This morning, a colleague from NASC said it on stage. It takes a village. I would say it takes a network. It doesn't only take a village, because that would limit media literacy to a region, to a municipality. But it's less about geography. It's more about social and communication skills at that point. So why are local network groups a legitimate answer to the challenges parents encounter when it comes to seeking help in media literacy and child safety matters? Local network groups can develop and realize events, workshops, and services that a single institution might not be able to organize because of financial shortcoming or a lack of expertise. Local network groups, this is our experience, can establish platforms to exchange ideas and knowledge as peer models. Local networks can reach out to target groups that a single institution might not have an impact on. They do not have to invent completely new structures, although sometimes it would be quite necessary, but they don't have to invent them again, because they can join forces and integrate different structures and reassemble them to a new structure. And local network groups have the vigor to create a strong social and political lobby and receive higher political attention than only one player on a local level. So our local network groups, how can you become a local network group for media literacy in our program? It all starts with a good idea, of course. It's always about having good ideas and people to transform the idea into reality. Local players and institutions find out about the possibility of forming a local network group on our website, at a conference we're attending, or mostly by word of mouth. It still works like that. It's not about social media at that point. That's what we figured out. With at least 2 other players on a regional level, they start the network group, they start discussing their interest, their intents, their target groups and goals, and they elect a spokesperson or an institution to lead and coordinate the network group. We recommend at least 3 players to form a network, and ideally, 1 player should already have some expertise in the field of media literacy, 1 should have access to the target group, and 1, that's what we recommend, should be a strategic player, for example, an administrative unit of the municipality. Now, after officially forming the local network group and starting at least 1 activity together, the group is included in our national program as a local network group for growing up with media. Now, a team, my team, we can accompany the process of becoming a network group, but the record and our experience also shows that as a team, as consultants, we're not needed at the beginning, because mostly in the local network groups, the motivation at the beginning is super high, but as a team, as consultants, we're needed when the motivation and the energy level drops. That's when we step into the process, and that's fine. That's what we're here for. We also developed a checklist on our website that helps local players to form a network group step by step. At this point, it's only in German, and I apologize for that, but after attending the conference, I'm highly interested in translating it into Polish. I think we can learn from each other at that point. So the aims of our local network groups. Our local network groups have defined a wide range of goals they are pursuing. For example, to create better networking between families, better communication between families, schools, extracurricular educational establishments, local administration, and so on in the field of media literacy. Their aims are, for example, to support socially disadvantaged families, to establish a new focus on media literacy in the institutions of the network groups, to develop new materials for teachers and educators, to ensure on-the-job training for teachers and educators, and to take a chance on developing new formats for events, workshops, and conferences. And my team, the starting point, Growing Up with Media at the Digital Opportunities Foundation, we counsel local players, help out with organizational tips, and provide information on media literacy and child safety for educators, parents, and children. We depict all active networks on our website, include them in national and regional events, and we provide opportunities to share their practical experiences, for example, in our newsletter. We also act as a lobby for network groups, for local network groups, toward political institutions and ministries, mostly that's where the money comes from, and introduce the network's experiences into political processes, for example, the lawmaking process Stefan Dreyer just described briefly. So I have a few examples for you. One is an example where a large number of different institutions formed a local network group. As you can see, very different institutions, very different aims, from schools to libraries to the youth office, addiction counseling, local welfare institutions as the Caritas. One should never underestimate the power of the church when it comes to media literacy and social welfare. And also a very important player on a local level is the police, actually. What we as a starting point recently experienced is a high interest in media literacy coming from local police officers. They're really interested in media literacy, not only in prohibiting certain media practices, but they're really interested in joining networks and learning from educators and learning from teachers. I think that is quite a good development at this point. So the local network group HUM, for example, it's very simple things they're doing, but the new thing is they're doing it together. Not every single institution has to organize a congress or a conference or meetings. They're doing it together, sharing responsibilities and sharing funding. So, for example, the local network group in HUM, they organize media literacy workshops for different social groups. They're regularly organizing meetings for parents. They have the Media Scout program for schools and trainings for teachers, educators, and social workers. The second example is a very small network, but with the quite different aims and methods they're using to reach parents, kids and teachers, educators on a local level. We're talking about DigiKids Frankfurt. It's only 3 players which are forming the network. It's the Addiction Counseling Association, the Daycare Association, and a health insurance company. Very interesting player at that point, especially when it comes to teaming up with addiction counseling, I'd say. But they use a rather different approach. They're using, the internet. So it's not that they invite on a regular basis to conferences, meetings, but they do a lot of digital work. They have their own podcasts. They are organizing webinars for free where parents, wherever they are, can participate. They have their own blog, and they do a lot of workshops with small children in daycare facilities. So this is only 2 examples from local network groups, and I'm quite sure that you as experts on media literacy on a local level could add many other examples from your experience in Poland. So because we're trying to take things seriously, we also started evaluating that process. And in the context of a series of interviews we conducted earlier this year, it became quite clear that after 3 years, the focus of the program's aims has changed. Most of the local network groups gave us the feedback that they wouldn't need support on matters concerning media literacy, cyberbullying, sexting, whatever, but that they felt overcharged with infrastructural hurdles and basic preconditions of local work. Hence, we invited the spokespersons of the local network groups to Berlin for a workshop to figure out how to proceed with the program after 2019. And in this workshop, we carved out 4 main conditions for a successful local network group. The first one is addressing target groups. Successful local network groups develop a detailed plan how to gain their target group's attention. They evaluate beforehand which news platforms, social media sites, and events could be useful for getting in touch with their target group. And they do not surrender when things don't work out in the first place, but they evaluate their communication strategy when the target groups would not respond to what the network group plans and offers. Secondly, it's about intergenerational or interdisciplinary networking and portfolio. Local network groups succeed when developing events and workshops where different social groups can learn from each other in a safe and non-judgmental environment. Local network groups formed by players with different institutional perspectives are more likely to develop creative and novel environments for non-formal learning settings. And local network groups which use practical approaches like gamification and design thinking attain a higher loyalty of their target groups and can win over new target groups. Thirdly, it's, as always in politics and education, about reliable structures and a reliable infrastructure, because we all know that short-term funded projects, constantly changing responsibilities and counterparts, and a lack of political commitment inhibit local network groups from growing and from keeping their motivation up. Youth welfare in Germany, as well as institutions to support families, have undergone severe budget cuts in the last couple of years, leading to an unstable infrastructure and civil society. And the last point is about sustainability. Local network groups, including players from municipal administration units, are more likely to become implemented in established institutional settings. Their entrenchment is essential to their independence of third-party funding and the individual motivation of a small group of people. The risk of being overstretched and overworked is decreasing massively when responsibilities are divided between institutional and individual players. So we're going to publish those observations later this year in November, and we're going to use the results of our evaluation to encourage local players to build more network groups for media literacy. So the digital, to end my input, the Digital Opportunities Foundation, as well as the Starting Point, Growing Up with Media, we're planning to continue the program, but transform it into a nationwide peer learning process where new and established local groups start counseling each other on practical issues and individual challenges. And as a starting point, we would provide counseling settings and events for exchanging ideas and good practice. We would facilitate the process and help with our expertise and networking skills without knowing all 11,000 municipalities in detail. And as the German government at this point is preparing to amend lawmaking on child and youth protection, we would like to encourage our local network groups to act as strong and versed ambassadors on how to implement those laws in everyday social and educational work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Anna? No questions? So maybe a question from me, because it's about learning and exchange. You have seen some examples from local networks in Germany. So do you know any good examples about similar networks in Poland? Do you have any good practice examples, or is there something maybe we could learn from you?
Yes. Let me learn, please.
Nothing you would like to share? But maybe you need a little bit time to think. I mean, you will be around tomorrow also, yes, and today later. So yes, maybe it's not for the big group. And we can start or continue discussions later on about this. But I think if it's about national examples and we have different countries here, I think we can learn from each other. So I think maybe you need to think about this a little bit and talk to Anna afterwards.
Let's network.
Let's network. This is just the beginning, not the end. So thank you very much, Anna. Bevor ich vergesse. Bitte schön. Bisschen was zum Essen.